We have our next speaker lined up right next to me. Ron Macnaughton will talk about a sunset.
I volunteered to do this, not expecting to show it, but there were only two speakers, and then Jim came through, and anyway, it's going to be fairly short. And it's great to get back to observing. I find it a little cold for most of the winter, and I enjoyed my little bit of observing. I have a photograph that is part of my bucket list that I want to take. And it involves a sunset, so here we go. I wanted a place where I could look both directions. So whenever I look at a sunset, I'm looking to the west, but there are all sorts of neat things happening to the east. So I found a place near north of Mono Mills. This is Highway 9 and Airport Road, a good route to go to CAO. And there's a little parking lot there and great hiking in Glen Haffey, by the way. And I went up to there. Oh, wrong way. And it was the 4th of March, a little cold, but not bitterly cold. And Stellarium said the sunset at 7:08. That's we have daylight, whatever time. Anyway, I found it didn't actually quite set to then. I didn't quite get there as early as I wanted to, but I got this photo with a wide-angle lens. So this is over a 90-degree patch of sky just at sunset, and to that direction it was rising a little bit, and it was falling towards the east. So I took this picture, and you can see the light there, and this picture, and it's actually surprising how clear that night was, because look at how sharp the boundary is between the light. So I'm going to call this time 0, and I took a photograph, 2 photographs a minute. So on the minute, I would take a photograph in this direction, I would turn the camera around, I would take the photo in the half minute towards the west, and then I kept going back and forth, and I didn't have time to do anything else while I was there. So we're going to call this time 0. Can we see? Okay, good. See, this is photo 23, so every 2 is going to be another minute. So we're going to call this minute 0. And we see the glow of the sunset there. This is 1 minute. Here's 2. And now you start to see the interesting thing that is, hopefully I'll get in my bucket list photo. So this is minute 5. And you can see the shadow of the Earth away from the sun. And it's fairly sharp. I'm sure most of you have seen it. Minute 6. It gets higher. Minute 7. 8. 9. This is 10 minutes. And that's a 90-degree field of view. So we're talking about, it's a few degrees up already. Let's see, this would be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I noticed that the shadow boundary is getting less sharp. And I would think it's because the sunlight is reflecting off higher atmosphere, so there's less to reflect off. So that pattern isn't as sharp. Now, when I get to the west side, I noticed a change that originally you could see a red color here and a red color here, and it wasn't overexposed here, but now it's overexposed, so there really isn't that much color there. Now, I also have a raw version of this, so I can accentuate it, but there's more brightness focused on the center. It gets higher. So what's my timing now? 57, 58. Okay, so this is going to be 20 minutes. That's 63, isn't it? So that's 20 minutes, and there's not much of a boundary there, and that phenomena is sort of hard to see. Notice also that the brightest part, as shown by the absence of the red color, is moving a little bit to the north. It's set here, and it's going a little bit to the north. And then at 27 minutes, I saw Mercury. or Venus, I mean. I'll talk about Ed in a few minutes. I saw Venus naked eye, and this is 27 minutes. And my way of telling that this was the time is I took 2 photos towards the west, because I had no paper I could write on because my hands were rather cold and busy with other things. With this program, I can't zoom in, but when you zoom in, you can see Venus about there, but I couldn't see Mercury yet. Okay, so, okay, now we're at about 30 minutes, and at that point, I could see both Venus and Mercury, and I was getting cold, and I wanted to get some pictures of Ed's favorite planet. So I decided to take some of those, but I'll first of all talk about exposures. All of these pictures, I just set my camera to take automatic exposure. And the camera chose the different settings, and as time went on, the length of exposure went from 1,000th of a second down to 1/25th at the 30-minute mark. And the f-stop, or opening, it's really narrow here, and it got wider. And not surprisingly, the east view isn't quite as bright, but it's all just automatic with the, wait a minute, what have I done? There. I converted all of them back to f8, and it turns out at time 0, it would have been about 1/5600th of a second, and the east would be 1/1300th of a second, and so on. Something I'm a little surprised at is the west. The final setting on the west was 1.6% as bright as the original, but the east got a lot darker. It was less than 1/500th. The ratio of the brightness of the 2 directions, it was lower just at sunset, like after the sunset, but then it went up and it went down, and I don't know if that's a statistical fluctuation or there's something special at the 5-minute mark that caused it. Anyway, I couldn't do a presentation without showing Ed Venus and Mercury, so here I was trying a few through different trees. And then I saw somebody had some flagpoles nearby, so I went there. And then the heavens changed, and the planets turned into arcs. And then I went home. So I promised you to show a sunset. Yes?
Couple of questions, Ron. First, what ISO setting did you use, and was it constant?
1600, all the way through.
All right. And second, was it one camera and you just flipped it around 180 degrees?
Yes, it was the same camera.
Okay. And how did you get it to be at exactly the same level?
I took my Manfrotto mount, and it has a bubble level on it, and I leveled it. And the first picture I took of the actual sun was taken before I leveled it. Actually, that was handheld for that. And then I leveled the tripod, and I just flipped back and forth and back and forth. And I had my little personal clock, that little alarm clock, and every time it reached either the top or the bottom, I would actuate the camera.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest a reason that you might have had that slight fluctuation, and that is that if the camera wasn't at exactly the same elevation, altitude, it was up or down a little bit, the sensor would read more dark or more light, and it would increase or decrease the exposure just a little bit, enough to give you that variation.
Oh, so you're speculating maybe somehow or other the camera got tilted forward or back?
It was up or down. It would have to be only a degree or two, and the sensor then would read, because it's probably an averaging sensor, that it's either darker or lighter than it was, and that's how you can get, because it was a very big variation, but that could very well be it. Yeah. That's why I was wondering whether you had a panning, sort of a video sort of pan head that would keep it at exactly the same level, but it may not have been, and a small variation will actually do that too.
Yeah, it was just a Manfrotto mount.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I did zero research on this, so I probably can't answer it.
Ask what made you do this?
What's that?
Why did you do this? So what made you?
I talked about my bucket list photo that I was trying for a little while ago, that shadow of the Earth at the sunset or sunrise, of course, I find really fascinating. And we usually don't see it because we're always looking to the west at the sunset time. And what I would like to do, and I tried, is to get a photograph of the full moon right in that shadow. And ideally, but the weather screwed me up, I would like to get an eclipsed full moon in that shadow. So that's my bucket list photo. Whether I ever get it or not, who knows? But that's what I'd like to be able to do. Okay?